Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie, and I am your astrologer this morning. It is the end of June. It's June 28th, and this week I had it set up to come and talk to you guys a little bit about the fixed squares, and then I realized, oh my gosh, it's the end of June. We have to do the July video, so it's going to be a little bit of both, because I feel like there's some really important astrology that's setting up in the immediate next week. And then we'll get into the transits for all of July of 2021. Good morning. Hi, Asha. Hi, Chelsea. Oh my gosh, guys, we have a lot of ground to cover today. I was like looking at my notes this morning and I was just like, this is gonna probably turn into a little bit of an astrology lesson, but that's okay. I'll try to kind of give it to you guys in a way that makes sense and it isn't too complex. Like sometimes I wish that I had like a whiteboard so I could just be furiously drawing all over it and showing you guys all of the angles, but I feel like I would look like Charlie from That's Always Sunny. You guys, have you seen that meme where he's like trying to explain things? That's me trying to explain astrology. So hi everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for joining me this morning. It's a little early, but that's okay. How's everybody doing? Nice to see everyone. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the astrology that's really setting up for the immediate next week, because I think the first like 5 days of July are just kind of like gangbusters, just with some of the aspects that are kind of showing up with the fixed signs. So those of you guys who have listened to my weeklies, you've heard me talk a lot about the Saturn square Uranus. That is being majorly activated the next like 2 weeks because of Mars and Venus. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about like how those planets work, the archetypal themes, what you see set up. Probably the easiest way to explain it is to kind of break it down piece by piece, because what we will be experiencing is a fixed T-square. So fixed being the fixed signs, we're seeing activations in Leo, Taurus, and also Aquarius. A T-square is where you have an opposition and then you have a planet that comes in that squares it. It's kind of like, I explain to my clients, it's like being T-boned, right? You're driving and then wham, something hits you out of nowhere and you don't see it coming. Over the next week, many of us are going to have that experience of something very quickly, fiercely, almost aggressively happening in our lives that forces us to make change. And change is not easy for anyone. It's especially not easy when it's taking place in these fixed signs, because we see a lot of like temper tantrums and flare-ups. We see a lot of people get really fixed and rigid in their ways. Remember, the fixed signs are responsible for carrying the energy of each season. So when we look at Taurus or we look at Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, that's the dead center of that particular season, and it holds the energy. It just keeps like building, right? Cardinal initiates, fix keeps it moving, and then mutable helps us kind of move into a more flexible energy, preparing for the next season, kind of winds things up. So when I see fixed squares or fixed T-squares, it's kind of like grinding gears. And those of you guys who have lots of planets in fixed signs, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I am like Scorpio stellium. I have lots of planets in Scorpio. I also have nodes in fixed signs, so I've been experiencing a little bit of that this year. And I have been doing nothing but really studying how the planets are going to be moving going into 2022, and like this setup for transit Saturn on my north node, transit Saturn square my sun Pluto, Uranus opposed my sun and my natal Mercury. So there's lots of like action with this stuff in my chart. So I can talk to you a little bit about how that's played out for me. Hopefully that will help you guys kind of feel like it's not just you that's in it by yourself. Nice to see everybody. Hi, Sarah. Thank you, Divine Pink Dragon. Hi, J-Lo. Appreciate the love, J-Lo. Thank you guys. If you like and share, it's really helpful for getting the channel out there. So I appreciate the love. All right, so I have lots of notes. So let me get into the notes. And I actually set it up. I was up quite early this morning and could not sleep. And I set up like a graph talking about how it's going to affect each and every sign. You really want to listen for your rising sign because that's going to tell you what will physically manifest. Definitely listen for your sun sign because it will relate as well. But I see more action happening with the predictions that I'm going to give you for the rising sign. So I'm literally going to be like, Mars is in Leo in this part of your chart. It's squaring Uranus in this part of your chart. It's squaring Saturn in this part of your chart. So that way everybody is well aware of what's going to go down over the next week. So stay tuned for that because I will do that at the end of my spiel about how fixed squares work. And then we'll get into the astrology of July. So this might be a little bit of a longer broadcast than usual. So if you want to grab a pen and paper, if you want to make a note of some of these dates or some of these energies, please do, because I'm going to break it down pretty, I'm really getting in there. So what you need to know, the 1st through the 5th of July is rather intense, okay? And it's ironic. It's like, you know, here in the States, it's going to be over 4th of July weekend. It's going to be super active. I think the positive side is that we're definitely going to see a lot of people out and about. We're going to see a lot more people socializing and kind of like interacting because there's like a lot of activations going on with Mars and now Venus in Leo. But those days are rather intense with a real emphasis on July 3rd, okay? So here's how squares work. Faster moving planets aspect slower moving planets. Right now, Mars is hanging out in Leo. It is moving faster than Uranus in Taurus and faster than Saturn in Aquarius. So we want to look at those different parts of your chart. Mars in Leo is going to be squaring both Uranus in Taurus and Saturn in Aquarius. Mars represents like ego, courage, heat, quick movement, motivation, sharp things. Just a word to the wise. Not the best time to be getting surgeries, okay? Depending on your chart, obviously astrology can go really in depth, and of course there can be some people where it might be a good time, but when you're looking at anything pertaining to Mars, right, this is like, you know, burning yourself, cutting yourself, getting a sunburn even, just kind of getting too much heat or getting too riled up or getting too aggressive or too angry. Having it in a harsh aspect to Saturn, which restricts, in Uranus, which is like sudden and unexpected, not the best time to be doing anything like tattoos, surgery, lip fillers, injections, all of these things. You can see more inflammation and more flare-ups and like more kind of sudden weird reactions than usual. That's just my 2 cents on that. Thank you, Sarah. So when we look at Mars in Leo, it's like the courage that we have. It can be very egocentric. It can be very oriented with what you are passionate about, what you want, and wanting it now, right? Because Mars is rather demanding. So I see Mars in Leo as like the potential for drama, the potential for temper tantrums, ego flare-ups, all of these things that comes with the territory of Mars in Leo. Then we have Uranus. So Uranus electrifies, it tears, it short circuits, melts down, but it's meant to liberate us and set us free, okay? Uranus has been in Taurus for a while now. Basically, we've seen this rock and rattle and roll, lots of changes in our financial lives, lots of changes in terms of what beauty trends and what makeup trends are out there, changes in clothing, changes in how we're actually cultivating food, things that are shaking up the markets. Then we have Saturn, which restricts and it limits, and it can be cold and hold back a little bit. It delays, it's very patient for good reason. It wants us to really make sure that we're passing the test and we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. So Saturn never says no, he just delays, and oftentimes the delay is for good reason. Now, okay, sometimes Saturn can say no, but usually that's to kind of like save our ass, you know? This is a very complex setup that we're going to be seeing that's going to happen the first week of July. So when we see this T-square come into action, Mars is moving and it will square both Saturn and Uranus, okay? So it feels like grinding gears. It's very uncomfortable. Lots of rumbles are expected. It's funny, I was like thinking about how this is gonna play out, and I kept thinking to myself, like, what's gonna happen? And I've seen little bits and pieces of it already. Yesterday I watched a lot of baseball. There was a bunch of, like, I guess, delay of games that happened on Saturday, so there was many more baseball games on Sunday. And there was just a god-awful amount of injuries. There's like people who are getting hit in the knee, people who are spraining or breaking ankles, and just all kinds of injuries. So when I think of like Saturn and Uranus, it's like that bend and then it breaks. Adding Mars to the mix is through movement, through moving too quickly, through driving too quickly, through not being cautious or not being aware. Sudden shifts and breaks even with relationships or friendships. So that's something else you want to take into consideration. So very specifically, like the T-square, it consists of 3 planets. It's an opposition and a planet that comes into the square. It's missing the 4th planet, which would be a fixed square. Now, just side note, if you have any planets in Scorpio, right, especially like, let's say 8 to 15 degrees, this will be a setup for a very quick, but it will be a grand fixed cross, which will make all 4 points in your chart move, okay? The T-square is less stable, and pressure is placed on the planet that receives the 2 squares, meaning the planet that is really going to get hit the hardest, and how you'll see it manifest is like Mars is going to react, Saturn is going to basically take a step back and let Uranus liberate and do its thing, and then Saturn will make a decision. So it'll be like an accident that happens, and then Uranus is a sudden change, and then Saturn's like, well, here are the consequences, right? Or an ego flare up, or an actual physical fight that happens. Uranus is like the chaos, the bar fight that ensues, and then Saturn is like the cops that show up. So it's gonna get a little active. The focal point is always on the apex, right? And it's important to really look at the signs and how this kind of plays out. So with the fixed squares, we see that the theme really is, you know, Taurus being about self-worth and mastery, Leo, which is about self-worth also, but more creativity, spirit, romance, and Aquarius is working through issues that are affecting everybody collectively. So it can be environmental issues, political issues. I just think of like Taurus and Leo and Aquarius, like setting all the planet stuff aside, and I'm seeing this setup that's building where there's going to be a great deal of friction, I think, that we're going to see out in public, and Aquarius on the internet, where there's just going to be a real meeting of the minds that are going to happen with younger and older generations, right? And I also think about what's been happening in the world and the fact that we're going out and we're going to be a little bit more active over the summer, and how people are responding to safety measures. You know, are people wearing masks, and are people, you know, getting in fights on airplanes? Are they getting in fights at the beach because they feel like people are too close and other people are being a little bit more loose, right? So watch for the friction. The good thing is that when you see these happen in fixed signs, it can force individuals to find a compromise, right? Sometimes through conflict, and I'm not stroking the fires of saying like, yeah, you know, go and start a brawl, but sometimes conflict is necessary for resolution. Sometimes conflict shows us where we're maybe not aligned with the right relationship, the right job, the right belief system, the right social group, whatever it is that sets up. It's just important to be more so aware of yourself and not feeling like you're so overly consumed with what other people are doing. Stay in your own lane. Mars in Leo gives you the opportunity to march to the beat of your own drum. While it opposes Saturn and Aquarius, some of your friends, some of your Facebook friends, some of your friends on social media, some people who you've known for some time may not resonate with what you're speaking or what you're believing or how you're acting. So be mindful that there can be things that play out where there's no coming back from some of the drama that is going to be happening. There will be definite moments for some people where there is a bend and a break in a relationship or in a job situation. The reality of the situation is that everything that's been playing out for the last month, due to the eclipses and also the retrogrades, we're setting us up to be prepared for this to finally come into July, and also in August, it'll be active with the Sun-Mercury squares, to become more aware of what we need on a personal and an individual level. So usually this involves like a person needing to tap into, you know, what they need on a personal level so they can make sense of why the clash is happening. And fixed signs are very self-focused. It's about maintaining self-worth. So self-worth issues and value issues will definitely come up. And basically these fixed squares teach us how to better incorporate flexibility and making decisions that are going to bring better rewards, right? So just keep that in mind. It does oftentimes involve another person. So be aware that other people with opposing views will show up, right? And it can be a person, it can be like a boss, a friend, a family member, right? Like it can be a situation, but usually it's a person that shows up that brings about this. And we want to track the moon this month, and we want to see what happens, because I believe the triggers are going to be stronger due to the moon being in any of the fixed signs. So when the moon is hanging out in Taurus or Leo or Aquarius or Scorpio, that's when you're going to see like the big pow pow, because the moon changes every 2.5 days, and it will oftentimes bring a series of events and it will trigger some of this stuff. So be aware. Much of this stuff will play out clear into mid-July. We're also still in the retrograde shadow, so things don't really start to calm down until between the 8th or the 10th of July as well. But yeah, the T-square is basically here to force action in order to release tension. So keep that in mind also, that if there's been a situation that has been building that you have not been dealing with, especially if you have planets in like the first, 8 to 15 degrees of a fixed sign, that tension is going to break. Right? When we see squares between Mars and Uranus, like I think meltdowns, I think, like all kinds of meltdowns, whether this is like your 2-year-old having a temper tantrum, whether this is a meltdown because something didn't go the way that you expected, a relationship meltdown, a literal toxic meltdown, weird stuff's going to happen. I'm also expecting that there's going to be all kinds of issues potentially with earthquakes, as well as other just other big eruptions. It can be an eruption, it can be an earthquake, it can be, we hear something in the news about a foundation giving and a big building falls, something like that can happen. Definitely a lot more accidents. I do believe there's going to be issues with internet shortages or internet going out, or like weird speeds with the internet. We may also see that there's going to be actual shutdowns, or there will be actual electric issues like electrical fires, or we're going to have like rolling blackouts with energy. Just like 2 nights ago, it was like the middle of the night, like the power just went off. I live in Vegas, but the power went off, and I was like, here we go. Is this really going to happen while we're in the midst of, triple digit heat? So here's what we want to look for, and here's where I want to give you guys the way out. The way out of these challenging fixed squares is we want to look for either a trine or a sextile from a planet or an aspect that is going to help us make sense of what's happening. So here are the ways out. Chiron in Aries, right? Because Mars is going to trine Chiron in Aries. So it's going to give us the opportunity to focus more on self-healing, be more self-aware. It's also going to make a trine to the South Node in Sag. Like I look at that Mars trine the South Node, trine Chiron in Aries is like being exceptionally aware the first couple of days of July and where you have a wound that you need to tend to, and staying in that, not projecting it onto other people, being really aware of what you need to do to work on that very personally. It will also sextile the North Node in Gemini, so it's a lot of like action and talking about the action that we're making. Many of the intentions that were set in June are now going to start setting up in July, because we've been talking about it during Gemini season. Now that the sun is in Cancer, it's kind of ironic because it's very different than all of this like Mars Uranus energy. It's, well, how do I feel? And what feels like home? And where am I nurturing? And like, where do I need to be processing things emotionally and really taking care of the emotions? So we've got like Mercury in Gemini, and we've also got Mars and Venus in Leo. And so it's kind of like, doing its thing, dancing off. And like a lot of us are still left in our feelings. So one thing that I would say is being aware first, because the sun is in Cancer, in how you feel is the first step. And trying to cultivate some kind of emotional security for yourself, depending on where Cancer is in your chart. We also want to look at if you have any personal planets within the first 10 degrees of any fire sign. Aries, Leo, and Sag. That's going to help you because it's going to make aspects to it that are going to release it and set that free. Fire is action, passion, creativity, motivation, and it's going to keep things moving. You also want to see if you have anything between 8 and 17 degrees, well, I would say 8 and 14 actually, of Gemini or Libra, okay? Why? Because it's going to make sextiles or it's going to make aspects to help release that energy. So be mindful because this sits on each side, the sextile of Leo. If it's funneling into Gemini, we want to talk about it. There's going to be some action. If it's funneling into Libra, it's going to make you more so aware of what's going on in your relationships, communicating in your relationships, and being more diplomatic. I'm seeing some of you guys go like, whoa, you got planets in those degrees. Get ready. So here are the placements that you really want to be aware of because it's going to be more intense and more challenging for these people. Anybody who is a fixed sign, especially between 10 and 16 degrees. So if you are a Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius within those degrees, pay attention. Sun, moon, rising, most active for the rising signs. If it's going to happen in aspect to a sun sign, it's going to affect you personally. If it's going to affect your moon, it's going to be more emotional or stuff pertaining to changes in the family or the domestic zone. Those of you guys who have Scorpio placements, especially Pluto, Saturn, or Uranus, that are in Scorpio, and the Pluto and Scorpio generation, so really pay attention. And this is setting up for a grand fixed cross. So here's what's interesting, and I will do a video about this because I've been studying, preparing for what's coming next year in my own chart. Next year, the North Node moves into Taurus, the South Node moves into Scorpio. We will have Uranus at some point conjunct the North Node in Taurus and Uranus. We will also have Saturn square these nodes. So if you are a Scorpio, if you have Pluto in Scorpio, so if you're born with that, you know, I can't remember the exact dates, but like I want to say the early 80s, maybe like 80, I think it's 84 on, you will get hit by this. Those of you guys who are born in the mid-80s, you've already been experiencing Saturn square your Pluto and Uranus oppose your Pluto. So you've already been in it. It's more the later 80s into the 90s that are going to get hit with this a little bit harder. So pay attention if you have lots of planets in Scorpio because there's just a lot of change that's happening for you. What to expect as a result of all of these squares. Divided situations, conflict, and some situations, somewhat dangerous events that kind of play out. I don't like saying that, but it is what it is. Possibility for bumps and bruises, accidents, broken bones, conflict, war. We don't know. We don't know how it's going to play out. I see it being more these like personal wars that we're having, right? Like between friendships, between lovers, people we're dating, having a challenging time with our children because it's kind of triggering Leo, which always deals with the 5th house themes. Power outages, electrical fires, shocks, earthquakes, all kinds of weird stuff is going to happen. Be mindful of where you are and what's going on around you, okay? And as long as you're more aware of your energy, you will be fine. I also want you guys to pay attention to what you're not dealing with. The elephant in the room that you're not talking about, the tension that's in your body that you're not taking care of. Situations where you're just putting a bandage on a broken arm, like it's not gonna work. This tension, especially when you're dealing with stuff like Mars, which can be very physical, and Uranus, which can be sudden, is when I see people have all kinds of nervous system issues or other health problems sometimes or accidents, as a way to make us more aware of the tension inside of us that we have not acknowledged. So if you've been holding back and having conversations with people, if you've been holding back and finally nipping something in the butt, it's going to be harder to contain some of these emotions, and we're going to see people really roar over the next 2 weeks. Okay, so where is this happening for you guys? Mars in Leo, you know, Uranus in Taurus, and Saturn in Aquarius. So like I said, listen for your rising sign for the action. The sun sign is more for you on an emotional and on a personal level. I would say like what you need in order to find happiness and grow. The moon is more emotional. So for Aries rising, Mars is in your 5th house of children, lovers, creativity, okay? So it's fun, it's creative, Venus is there, Maybe you want to go on dates. You're really focused on playing with your kids. It's great for creative work, right? But it's being pressured by Uranus in your second house of money and values. It's being pressured by Saturn in your 11th house of friendships. That can set up as a situation where there's just a lot of activity going on with your children. You're feeling like you're having to balance things financially. You're wondering whether or not it's smart for you to be going off and hanging out and spending money perhaps with your friends and socializing, but you've got this obligation of either a creative project or perhaps even a child that limits your ability to do something. So Mars in the 5th wants to go. Yes, let's have the baby. Let's get pregnant. Let's get married, whatever. And it's all about falling in love. But there needs to be something that evolves and changes with the second house of values, and also aspects Saturn, which is, you know, how you're showing up in a society's kind of way. Many Aries are feeling the pressure of what's going on specifically with some of these topics in their life. There can also be some weirdness revolving around whether or not you're friends like someone you're dating, whether or not somebody you're dating is friends or are they something more. Definitely this gets hit also very financially. So I could see this as being like a lot of financial changes or a lot of investment changes for you. For Taurus, Leo is in your 4th house of home and family. So it can be a very active time with Mars and Venus in your 4th house. It can be great for changing the home, beautifying the home, moving things around, you know, deciding on whether or not you're getting ready to move, if you need to move. Family can be around, all kinds of stuff. Mars in the 4th house can be a little challenging because there can definitely be some like ego brawls going on with people that you're living with. There's pressure that's also happening from Uranus in your 1st house and also Saturn in your 10th, right? So Saturn in your 10th is like work, 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 show up for work, show up for what you're doing. It might also be dealing with a strict boss or dealing with a strict schedule or maybe even a parent. And then you've got Uranus on your ascendant. So there seems to be some kind of friction between like what a parent expects of you and what like a partner at home expects of you. And you're just like, forget this. Like, I'm sick of being in the middle. You know, you got a parent telling you something or a boss telling you something, and then you've got people at home that are pulling you in both directions. So a lot of Taurus risings are going to really feel the need to rebel, when in reality, what's really happening is that you benefit from making these changes within your home or your family structure, so you can kind of find that balance. Like, all of the T-squares are meant to be helping us teach us where we need to come more so into balance and help things work together in the future. So it can be a little bit more challenging for you, Taurus, feeling like you've got free time, feeling like you've got space, you can do what you want to do. And I would just say, because this is happening in angular houses for you, be mindful that the decisions you're making, how you're reacting and responding to family right now, is going to majorly affect what happens in your career and also the future of your life, okay? Gemini, Mars is in Leo in your 3rd house. Very active, communicative, you know, chatty. Many Geminis might be feeling like they need to hit the road, they need to go on a short distance trip. They can be very active with siblings. There can be some aspect of maybe thinking or contemplating whether or not they want to get a new car or vehicle. Now, this is coming into a square with Uranus in your 12th house and also Saturn in your 9th house. Going on walks, reading, communicating, writing, learning something new, spending time like reading by yourself. This is amazing because I feel like the pressure that's being applied to Uranus in your 12th and Saturn in your 9th is like, do you need to learn a new language? Do you need to purchase tickets to go on a trip? Are you having all kinds of crazy precognitive dreams where there's all this stuff going on when you're sleeping and you want to learn more and you want to grow spiritually and come into understanding what's happening? So part of what I would say is listening to your intuition. I feel like this can be a little bit easier for Geminis to deal with than other placements. And it's just really this like growth and evolution of what's going on with you, especially in terms of your spiritual life. On the flip side, Saturn in the 9th can be like legal matters, and all these planets in the 3rd can be having to sign documents or paperwork, right? Or, you know, anxiety revolving around whether or not a trip will go through or whether or not something's going to fall through. It definitely can also deal a lot with writing and publishing or education, and a lot of situations that are either anxiety ridden or things that are outside of your control showing up and kind of creating some changes or some delays in any of these matters. Cancer, Mars is in your 2nd house in Leo. It's pressuring your 11th house where Uranus is, and it's also pressuring your 8th house where Saturn is. So Mars moving into your 2nd, I see that as like, you know, focusing on making money, but Mars in the 2nd can be spending money just as much as you're making it. And it's pressuring your 11th and your 8th house. So it might be like there is this focus in needing to spend money to make money. Sometimes you'll have to pay things off. You know, Saturn in your 8th house right now is saying that either you've got a partner or you've got somebody who's not working, or they're not making as much money, or they don't have as much to give you. Mars in the 2nd can have you really pushing financially for your financial goals. And so you see like this pressure that's building between your goals and your partner's goals, and it can be harder to see the future of where you're going financially because there can be some delay or limitation with resources. It can also be like whether or not you feel like you're getting enough money from a job, or whether or not you feel like you have enough benefits from a job, whether or not it's smart for you to be spending a bunch of money, right? Saturn in the 8th can really put the highlight on taking out loans to get ahead business-wise, but equally where if you're in too much in debt, where you're wanting to kind of hold back. So I could see where friends are wanting to go and party with all that energy in your 11th house, and you're like, well, my partner's not working, you know, we can't spend a lot of money. So just be mindful that there's a lot of you needing to go through another person and talking to another person about these challenges, okay? For Leo, it is your time. Like, I almost want to tell you, like, don't pay any mind to what other people say to you, because really the good news is you're really going to shine, right? Mars and Venus in your 1st house. And it's really great for, you know, going and getting a new hairdo, putting some new clothes on, some new cosmetics, really feeling yourself, going out and being super fierce. The challenge here that's building for you, and it's been going on for a while, you have felt this, like all of the fixed signs, is that there's all this pressure with Uranus in your 10th house and Saturn in your 7th. And you might feel like you've spent the last 6 months being like, I'm constantly juggling between relationships and work, like I haven't had any time for me, it's time for me. You know, the sun's in your 12th house, so you're getting ready for your birthday soon. So there's this clearing that's going on, that's happening, where you realize that you need more emotional satisfaction. You need to be more focused on what's going on with you, your physical body. So all those planets on your ascendant, you're going to be a hot commodity. People are going to check you out walking down the street. They're going to be like, hey. But Saturn in opposition to all of this, it might be that partner that's like, you know, I really want to see you, but, you know, I'm working. And you'd be like, whatever, I'm doing my thing. And go and post a bunch of selfies looking good. That's what I would do. But realize that there can also be friction with either a parent with Uranus in your 10th house, or there can also be some kind of friction that's going on, you know, at work. So you may not want to show up to the office wearing the push-up bra and the big hoop earrings, depending on where you work, I guess. But you're going to want to. And you might find that there are also partners that are stuck at work and they've got a lot of stuff going on, and maybe they see you take off and you go somewhere with your friends and they're like, why are you wearing that short dress? Like, what's going on? Like, who are you hanging out with? There could be some jealousy. So just be mindful of that there can be a little bit of friction going on there. Your 7th and your 10th house always deals with your public image too as well. So it's like, especially if you're somebody who's really building on that public image, or, you know, you're really seen by a lot of people, just be more mindful of your behavior and how you're dressing, okay? You're gonna have fun with it though. For Virgo, Mars is in your 12th house right now, and that can feel a little anxious. It can feel like winding things down, needing to heal, something like that. And you've got pressure going on because you've got your Uranus is in your 9th house and Saturn is in your 6th house. So Mars in your 12th, I see that as like the need to heal. Mars and Venus there is actually quite nice also, because those are, you know, some rather sexy placements. So there can be a lot of like lovemaking going on, or just like a lot of like romance going on behind the scenes, or kind of like seeing how it plays out before you tell the world. Because it's in a square to Saturn that's in your 6th house, and Uranus that's in your 9th. For some Virgos, it can be finding love far away. You know, Jupiter's still in Pisces for a little bit longer, so it can be that you've connected with somebody who lives at a distance and you're like, how could that work? Or culturally, we're so different, or we're so diverse. There can also be this aspect of like gearing up and getting ready to learn a new skill. When we see the pressure between the 6th house and the 9th house, it wants to evolve, it wants to travel, it wants to learn, it needs new information, new knowledge, and working that into your daily routine. Virgos are going to need a little bit more time for rest and healing. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting, and you'll see that intermittently through the summertime. Be mindful that you can definitely see some flare-ups happening between your 9th and your 6th house, where there's just changes in your schedule, and it's just desperately trying to get you to change things about your schedule or your health and the knowledge and the information that you seek in order to fulfill that, okay? For Libra and Libra rising, so Mars is in Leo in your 11th house. Very fun for socializing, seeing your friends, going to parties, going to birthdays. There's going to be lots of celebration. Friends might be talking about that they're pregnant or they're getting married. And you've got this pressure that's happening with Uranus in your 8th house and Saturn in your 5th. So it'll be things like, okay, changes in friendships. Some Libras are going to be hanging out around friends they haven't seen in a little while. With that ding that you're going to get from Saturn, it's this reevaluation of like, do I still resonate with these friends? Do I still like these friends? Are we on the same page? And with squares to Uranus in your 8th house, you want to be really mindful of like I'm not going to say not mixing, but like business and pleasure or friendships and pleasure. There's some weird stuff here. Anything that pertains to like, sharing secrets also with friends, it can come out. You're going to have friends that are going to be asking questions about people that you're dating, or there's going to be some topic or discussion about goals pertaining to finances or goals pertaining to children. So there can be a lot of back and forth that friends will bring up while you're around your partner. So be mindful of that. But I think it'll be more fun than anything else. The 8th house is kind of a funky house because it definitely deals with change. So I'm seeing like a lot of Libras that are talking about the fact that they want to change, their goals are shifting, and they're coming more into their awareness of, at least for the next month, where they want to share that with friends and how friends can help kind of expand that. For Sagittarius, Mars is in your 9th house in Leo. It is pressuring your 6th house where Uranus is in Taurus, and it's also pressuring Saturn in your 3rd house of communication. For many Sagittarius, I see this as like you really want to travel, you want to go somewhere, or you want to be learning or maybe even teaching something. There's something that you want to go and explore. Mars in the 9th house is a really great time to just be traveling and traveling far away, or possibly even considering or contemplating teaching or taking a course. The problem is it's pressuring Uranus in your 6th house and Saturn in your 3rd. So it tells me there's some limitation in your schedule. You can't get away right now. Saturn in the 3rd says, hey, you can't get on an airplane right now, but how about we go on a weekend trip? There is a way to find that middle ground so you still feel like you're not in enclosed spaces. Saturn might also say, well, do you need to make changes in your vehicle? Do we go on the really expensive trip to Italy, or do we get a new car? Like what's going to make more sense? It might also be that you need to learn a language, or that you need to update something pertaining to like some software or an electronic in order to make it easier for you to go about your day-to-day routine. Okay, so be mindful of that. Oh, somebody said I skip Scorpio. How can I do that? Okay, so that was Sag. So let me go back to Scorpio. Scorpio, Mars is in Leo and it's in your 10th house. It's pressuring your 7th house where Uranus is, and it's also pressuring Saturn in your 4th house. So these are happening in your angular houses, Scorpio. Be mindful. Mars, when it goes through your 10th house, is like kick-ass. It's really great for getting work done. It's really great for just being super busy. I think it's also really positive for being able to just, be seen, right? Because it's like being courageous and being out there. The problem is that it's coming into a square with Uranus in your 7th and Saturn in your 4th. So it's like you need to get a lot of work done. You may not always be able to be home, or maybe you're feeling like there's a lot of home responsibilities with Saturn in your 4th, and you're like, I gotta go to work, and your partner's like, what the heck? You left me with the dishes? Like, I don't want to take care of the kids, or not showing up basically in a domestic way or in an emotional way connected to your partner. And your partner's gonna act a little wackadoo, those of you guys who are in relationships. If you're not in a relationship, it could also manifest as a result of going out and being more focused in the world and working. It can trigger actually meeting someone or even working with a partnership. Many people who are Scorpios, who are at least Scorpio rising, who are working from home with Saturn in the 4th, there's something going on where it's like something's got to give. Either the relationship has to give or the home life has to give. Don't worry about Mars in your 10th. This is short term. Long term, you're still seeing this square. So it's like either you and a partner got to move, or you got to move for a relationship, or there's not enough space in your home to be able to do the work that you're doing, and you're outgrowing your space. You will very much see this over the next month. So be mindful of that. Okay, so we did Sag, now we're going to Capricorn. I don't know how I forgot Scorpio. I'm a Scorpio. Okay, so for Capricorn, Mars is in your 8th house. This is putting pressure on your 5th house and also pressure on your 2nd. Right now, Uranus is in your 5th and Saturn is in your 2nd house, okay? So Mars and Leo in your 8th. First of all, it's sexy. That's the good news. It's also good for making money, bringing more money in. There can be some aspect of bringing in from a creative project, bringing in from a younger person, bringing in your spouse or your partner is making more money, or you get a bonus. But it's also very sexual. And when it's putting pressure on Uranus in the 5th, be mindful, Capricorns. A lot of you guys can easily get pregnant with some of these squares that are happening, or you start talking about merging with another person financially. It's just very fertile energy. Uranus in the 5th house I see as like a lot of change in fate with creative projects, money that's coming in, money that you have from your own business. It can also be that there can be just a surprise baby or a surprise lover. And then the pressure on the other side of this is also in your 2nd house where Saturn is. So I see this as like still there's this reoccurring theme of, well, I want to have fun. I want to go out there. I want to be creative and launch something, or I want to date, but I don't feel like I have the money, or the self-esteem is not setting up, right? So be mindful that there's some conversation that's happening where right now it says you got to go into your 8th house. You got to be passionate. You have to focus on receiving the funds, receiving the money, connecting with the person, which will change the fate of your 5th house, and it will also get nicked by Saturn. So be cautious with spending. Like, don't go too spend crazy, Capricorns. For Aquarius, Mars is in your 7th house. It's pressuring your 4th house and your 1st house. So for Aquarius, you have Uranus that's in your 4th house, and you have Saturn that's in your 1st. Once again, like the fixed signs, these are angular houses. This is a little bit more challenging, and it rocks and rattles and rolls everything. So Mars in your 7th and Venus in your 7th. The good news is that you've got some really lovey-dovey, passionate kind of potential relationship stuff that's setting up. People want to spend time with you. They want to see you. Saturn in your 1st house, you're a little standoffish. You're like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to come out and play. I don't know if I'm ready. You know, I don't know if I feel good enough. I don't know if I have the time. So you see this separation where somebody's really pushing and you're taking a step back. Saturn in your 1st house can also just be like you taking a wait and see kind of method and looking at things and kind of going like, well, let me see if this is going to burn out overly quickly. The funny thing is that you've got this square going on with Uranus in your 4th. So you can meet people who literally bring out these huge emotional shifts in you. You can meet people who might be willing to move to you or trying to get you to move to them. You already want freedom, either emotionally or in terms of your home life. So partners will start kind of stirring that. If I look at this more in a textbook way, it might be like you deciding whether or not you want to introduce somebody to your family, and you're like, I don't know, let's wait and see how it goes. And then, you know, they may not like that. Or if they meet your family, Uranus in your 4th can be that parent that's just like, I don't know about that one. It's a no-go. So something about relationships and home dynamics may not play out so well over the next month. Just be mindful of that. And then we've got, last but not least, Pisces. Mars is in Leo in your 6th house. It is putting pressure on Uranus in your 3rd house and Saturn in your 12th. If you are anxious, Pisces, because that's the feeling that I get looking at this, you know, Mars in the 6th is great for dancing, going out, working up a sweat, doing some cardio, like really kind of building and doing something that's creative and active. So like dancing can be really great. Acting can be really great. But it's putting pressure on Uranus in your 3rd. So it tells me that there needs to be changes in your day-to-day routine in order to better facilitate Uranus in your 3rd. Also walking, I see like Uranus as being like sudden sporadic, you know, movement in your 3rd house is just getting active. Saturn in your 12th makes you feel a little closed off from the world or separated. So it's like it's important to communicate and get out there and start organizing your schedule in a way where people are aware that you have some free time. sometimes that's just sudden phone calls that spark changes in your schedule, and you're more so willing to just hop in the car and go do something on a whim. And I also feel like it can be really positive for you because it's setting you up and getting you super healthy, both emotionally and physically. So if you want to change physicians, if you decide that you want to find a new vet, if you decide you want to try a new diet, anything like that, very lovely. Be mindful that very soon all of these planets will go into Virgo. So what it's going to start to set up for you is some really great relationship stuff as well. Okay. There's a lot of information. We haven't even gotten to July. So hopefully that was helpful. I had to give that to you guys, especially because this is going to be going on all month long. So I really wanted to make sure that this was really thorough so you guys have an understanding. And you can even come back to this throughout the month. I'm going to set this up as the monthly video for July. So that way you guys, if you miss anything, you can come back and listen to it. If all this stuff sounds like Latin to you, consider booking a reading. You can find my links below. I have availability now starting in August. I'm a very busy lady, so if you guys want to chat with me, make sure that you book soon. My website's beyondtheveiltarot.com for tarot, astrology, and clairvoyant readings. Okay, let's get into July and let's take a look at what is happening in July. So we're going to kick this off day by day. July 1st, Mars in Leo comes into an opposition with Saturn in Aquarius, okay? So if you look, Mars is chilling at 12, Saturn's chilling at 12. 12 is dissolving, it's mysterious, we don't always see it. Like, I'm not expecting a lot of action this day. Mars might want to move forward and Saturn pulls back, but I don't know if we're going to see it until the square happens to Uranus, so it will really play out closer to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, okay? So it's more about impulsive energy and being impulsive and rushing through something. It can reveal something hidden or something that you didn't see before. So look for what's going on around the 1st, all right? Then we get to the 3rd of the month, and I think this is the action-packed day where Mars in Leo squares Uranus in Taurus. This is explosive, guys. We talked about this earlier. It can represent accidents, obstacles, heated kind of interactions, and flare-ups. This is the day that you really want to watch for. Then when we get to July 5th, this is when the Sun in Cancer will sextile Uranus in Taurus. I feel like this is kind of like coming off of like the chaos. The nice thing about this is that the sudden changes that have happened, it's going to unveil something. It's going to show us some kind of truth. And we have to sit with that truth emotionally and kind of integrate it and see how we feel. So something about the 1st through the 4th is going to create a shakeup. And then it's like, okay, boom, on the 5th, how do we deal with this? All right. On July 6th, we see the last, thank God, and final square of Mercury in Gemini to Neptune in Pisces. We saw this play out a couple times over the last month. Basically, you know, Mercury is how we communicate, how we move, the contracts we sign, what we agree to, phone calls, text messages, emails. This has been a really rocky, for myself and a lot of my clients, retrograde season. And I think it's actually the most wild, both in the pre-shadow and the post. It's going to get kind of wild. So misunderstandings, miscommunication, kind of fogginess, you know, I would just say, like, don't make any impulsive, you know, decisions to sign anything, to sign a lease, buy a car, agree to anything. Like, when in doubt, ask for clarity, ask for details, read the fine print. Okay. Then we've also got on the 6th, Venus in Leo in opposition to Saturn in Aquarius. So, you know, this combination, it brings up, you know, friendships, it brings up relationships, it brings up money because it's Venus, it brings up Saturn, which is limitations. I could see like a lot of like conflict revolving around, you know, whether or not couples spend 4th of July together, and like that being a definitive thing. Like people who are like, oh, I can't go out, and then they get busted on social media going and hanging out with another group of friends. Like, this is the kind of stuff that we're going to see happen. Not seeing eye to eye about relationship or financial matters is basically what I think is going to kind of happen. And it's also having to juggle between having fun and doing something that's more serious. So some people may have work obligations. Some people may have family obligations, but they want to cut loose. I think the 4th falls on, I'm not sure which day the 4th falls on. I should know this. It falls on a Sunday. So those of you guys who have to be at work on Monday and you're partying all weekend, and let's say you decide, oh, it'll be fine, I'll call in sick to work, it may not be fine. The boss may not be thrilled about that. So make sure your social media is private so you can get away with it. Yeah. Next we have on the 8th, Venus in Leo square Uranus in Taurus. And so this is why I think it gets kind of hairy, probably clear until about the 8th or the 9th of July. But when we have this square between Venus and Leo, which is super romantic, boastful, prideful, and Uranus and Taurus, total shift and change in relationships, total change in values, big surprises in both of these things can be happening, not always welcomed, right? Especially when we look at what's going on with Uranus and Taurus. Like, people can get gifts that they're not crazy about. People can go and suddenly change their hair or dye their hair a color that they thought they were gonna like and they realize they hate it. Not a great time to make big aesthetic changes, but it can be a time where there are shifts happening in relationships or friendships that actually have to take place, okay? Now we go to July 9th. This is gonna be that new moon in Cancer, super emotional. You know, the way that I see this new moon is, yes, new moons are new beginnings, but this is also a situation where I see it as emotional awareness, like emotional renewal. Like, some of us are not going to feel like we're like, yeah, let's go out and do things. To me, it seems more with the aspects to Neptune, and I'll go deeper into this in next month in my videos. It's more about cleansing, purification, emotional wellness, domestic matters, home matters. Like, this is a very different kind of new moon, okay? And then we've got on July 11th, Mercury enters Cancer. So we start becoming more connected emotionally to what is happening in the world. We can speak from a much more kind of heart-centered space. We want to talk about family. We want to talk about home. We want to talk about all of the feelings. And so we become more aware of that. And then on the 12th, we've got Mercury in Cancer, which comes into a trine with Jupiter in Pisces. Good news, good ideas, good emotional shifts, positive spiritual shifts, being able to kind of express ourselves a little bit more emotionally and being a little bit more sympathetic to other people. So I like that. It can also be great for just making plans, you know, like traveling, making plans to go places. It's going to go a little bit more smoothly, especially now that we're out of the retrograde shadow. Then on the 15th, the sun in Cancer comes into a trine with Neptune in Pisces. Great day to hang out at the pool. That's what I would say. Great day to be hanging out and making yourself comfortable, creating, daydreaming, listening to music, being at the beach, all that kind of vibey stuff. And this trine will be exact that day, but you'll be feeling it for a couple days. You may be feeling it clear into when the moon moves into Scorpio. On the 15th also, Chiron goes retrograde in Aries. So this is a time that we all may not feel this the same way. Maybe if you have personal planets in Aries, but shifting our focus on personal healing more inward, right? It's retrograde. So we turn the energy inward and we focus on what's going on within ourselves. On the 17th, the sun in Cancer comes into an opposition with Pluto. Power struggles, right? Where somebody is trying to control us, or where there is some kind of breakdown or misuse of power and power playing us, right? It can present us opportunities for coming into success, but we want to move away from manipulation, jealousy, kind of shadow stuff. There can be a lot of shadow things that are coming up during that time, especially pertaining to work and domestic matters. Good time to pay attention to what's going on also, like within the government and what's happening with like homing stuff or financial things. There can be a lot of information that comes out, at least here in the States, pertaining to the housing market. The whole month is going to be crazy for what's going on with finances and economics, like this month and next month because of the squares. So I can't tell you which day some of these things are going to happen, but that's a day to definitely watch. On the 21st of the month, Venus moves into Virgo. So picky lovers, particular lovers, I think it can be really great for, getting down to business when it comes to love or money, being of service, focusing on being more practical, right? Because Virgo is an earth sign, so being more practical with love and relationships and resources, how we spend our money. And then on the 22nd of the month, the sun moves into Leo. So it's in its home ruling sign. Happy birthday to those of you guys who are July Leos. It's definitely going to be fun, bold, playful, creative, romantic. And you have a couple of days until it comes into the opposition with Saturn square Uranus. So we'll deal with that closer to the beginning of August. On the 22nd of the month, we see that Venus in Virgo makes an opposition to Jupiter in Pisces. Also, big love, big opportunities, big shifts, love at a distance, a more spiritual side of love. Seeing something open up that we weren't really aware of is kind of how I see it. It's going to play out differently for different people, but I think that that's going to be a rather kind of like free and loving kind of vibe. On the 23rd of the month, we are going to have a full moon in Aquarius. So this is going to be kind of an eventful full moon. It's going to be not exactly aspecting the fixed squares, but shortly after the full moon as the sun and also Mercury move into Leo next month, some of the squares. Full moons in Aquarius is about coming together, humanitarian issues, working with groups, friendships. And at that time, we look at what's happening with Uranus. So Uranus is kind of moving into, or it's losing the sextile from Mercury in Cancer. So it's kind of like a little bit more emotional and a little less action-packed. The only thing that I do see is like Mars and Venus are making an opposition to Jupiter. So I see like separations, or I can also see like people being at a distance. We'll get into that in my weekly videos. On the 24th of the month, Mercury is going to be making a trine to Neptune and Pisces. So Mercury in Cancer is very emotional. Neptune in Pisces is very dreamy. It can be a great time to be talking about our future dreams, our feelings, remembering our dreams, looking up our dreams. I'm like really big into dream dictionaries and analyzing my dreams. My dreams, I don't know about you guys, but they've been so crazy, like active. Like I've had dreams almost every night the last week. Granted, some of them are kind of like weird, but they've been very active. And then finally, we've got on the 27th of the month, Mercury enters Leo. Oh, actually, no, let me go back. On the 25th of the month, Mercury in Cancer is going to oppose Pluto in Capricorn. So this is like, I see this as energy where people can get threatened or intimidated. I see this as energy where there can be some communications about life or death situations, intense conversations about what needs to change first emotionally. Family might be dealing with a lot of intense interactions. You might be hearing a lot of stuff about what's going on with family at a distance or what dynamics need to change within a household. And then on the 27th, Mercury enters Leo. So that's just passionate, creative, fun, really well-spoken. We've still got Mars that's going to be there in the sun. So there's just a little bit more of like that Leo kind of roar that's happening. It's going to give us the ability to also be like more so entertained. Definitely a lot of drama and a lot of sharing of stories is kind of what I'm expecting. On the 28th, we will see that Jupiter will begin its retrograde back into Aquarius. So it's at 29 degrees. It's kind of party in opposition to Mars. Definitely a time to watch for. Definitely things are going to shift right around the 27th or the 28th. Jupiter wants expansion and Mars wants action. So there's going to be a lot of like big things that are going to be popping off at the end of July. Last but not least, on the 29th of the month, Mars is going to move into Virgo. So that gets us more focused on, being organized, crossing off things on our to-do list, taking better care of our health, our wellness, our pets, being more mindful of our day-to-day routine, getting us ready and setting us up for Virgo season, which will be quite nice actually when the sun shows up next month, because Mars and Venus have already gone through there and they've cleansed and they've organized and they've purified everything. So those of you guys who want to make health changes, want to make those shifts, great time to do it at the end of the month. because I think it's setting you up to really see some of those effects as early really as the beginning, I would say, of, well, maybe like mid-August, but we'll get into that next month. Can also be a really great time where we're just like striving for perfection. You want to watch for obsessiveness. And it's a really great time to think about how you can best be of service to other people. Okay. So that was a lot of information. Those of you guys who stayed with me, thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully this was helpful and it made sense. I will be coming back and talking more over the next couple of weeks as we start seeing more of these squares perfect. What has happened, what's played out. I'm really interested to hear how it's played out for you guys. So if you want to come back to this video and leave messages, you know, let us know what your rising sign is or even your sun sign, because it can help other people hearing what played out and how you navigated it. And also I'm pretty active in the comments and also in responding. I try to respond to people, or at least like things, and let you guys know that I'm there. I appreciate your comments, your likes, your shares, your subscription. We now have a subscription option where you can go and you can subscribe and you can be one of my supporters for this channel, whether you just want to donate at the lowest tier just to show appreciation, or you want to get into the higher tiers where you actually get a shout out. And we have a shout out that's coming because we do have somebody that has subscribed within that tier. So I just need to get that information. That's going to be coming here shortly. And yeah, if you want to book a reading with me, check out my links below. You can also see all of my social media. So if you want to follow me on Instagram or Twitter or on Facebook, please do. It's always nice to see you guys do that. And thank you to everybody in the chat. I see all of you guys. I appreciate you hanging on. I will see all of you guys very soon. You guys have a very happy and healthy holiday weekend, but also entire month of July. Watch out for those big pow pow. Take care.